Hi, it's Ava. It's a casual day today, and I wanted to talk a little bit about managing holiday blues, if that's something that you experience. Holidays can be a really happy time if things are going well in your life, but if they're not, or maybe you're disconnected from your family, maybe things have just gotten a little bit harder to manage in terms of relationships, maybe when you go home it's just the same old fighting or sniping. Maybe your mom, for example, always sort of breaks you down, or maybe it's one of your siblings, or maybe it's even your father. Whatever the reason is, it's a time sometimes for people to fall into depressions and funks. Perhaps they're not really appreciated. They're thinking nobody's going to be giving them any gifts. There's no real warm, sort of loving place for them to spend those special days with, having meals, for example. Those afternoon meals, for example, that kind of are in It's a Wonderful Life, like all the sort of media perspectives that we've got about what holidays look like. And so, if you're one of those people who find yourself feeling alone, feeling down, feeling depressed, or even a little anxious because maybe there's not a lot of money this year for gifts. Maybe it's always just a struggle, and regardless of what you do or how much you try to do, you just can't go and like please people. And so, whatever those reasons are for the blues, the anxieties, we're just going to go and do some releasing today because there's a few things that you can do for yourself that might go and change this holiday. I used to have holidays like this. In fact, I had holidays like that for most of my life until I just finally said I was just really fed up with not being happy around the holidays or feeling like I would come back and that I would need like 2 to 3 weeks to sort of detox from what I'd gone through. Don't do that anymore. So, a couple things that I did that I found very helpful that I want to suggest to you is one, look at the list that you've got going on. It's either maybe in your head, maybe it's on your refrigerator, maybe it's in your pocketbook, maybe it's in your calendar. But there's potentially a list that you've got going on of all the things that you think that you need to be doing right now. Now, go through that list and be like, are those things that you really need to be doing? Or have you gotten sort of caught up into the busyness of things? Or have people, hate to say this, sort of taken advantage of your goodwill and asked you to bring a few more snacks to the school, holiday parties, for example, than you really needed to do? Because maybe only one was really necessary, but you couldn't say no and you felt kind of bad because it was like your, baby girl. And so now you found yourself having to provide 3 different days worth of snacks or treats or something. Anyway, that's just one example. But for those of you who know what I'm talking about. So go through that and see if there are certain things that you can kind of cut down on. Maybe there's some parties that, for example, you really don't want to go to, but you've been invited to, things like with the neighbors that you don't want to go to. Maybe ask yourself, why are you going? That's one of the hardest questions that I had to sort of face was like, why do I feel I need to do this? Some of it was I felt like I would feel guilty if I didn't. I felt like they weren't asking a lot. I felt like, well, maybe they won't like me anymore. I was really attached to that sort of perspective. Also, I didn't feel like I could say no. And so once I sort of started digging into like what my motivations were for feeling like I had to do things that I didn't really want to do, that really changed things up, and it allowed me more freedom to be like, this is the kind of thing that I want to do, which sort of like involved an entire overhaul of like how I do the holidays now. And it's kind of changed my life in the most beautiful way. So that's one thing. I think the other thing that I would recommend is taking some time to actually honor yourself. That's a really hard thing. I even was talking with my bestest friend about this, and she said she has a hard time buying something for herself around the holidays because she felt that she should be buying for everybody else. And it was just something actually she even needed for her business. But for some reason, she just said, I feel really guilty about buying something for myself. And I'm like, yeah, but you need it for your work. And she was just like, I know. She's like, it's crazy. You'd think that like I wouldn't have a problem. But she's like, but for some reason around this time of year, I have a hard time getting myself something because I should be spending money on somebody else. That's a lovely sort of thought, but at the same time, it's not necessarily a thought because there's always abundance. And so if you're feeling sort of that pressure, maybe sort of take a moment to say, what do I need? When I started asking myself that question, kind of at first I didn't even know what to say back. What do I need? What do I need? But what I really realized is that I needed more space and I needed more time. And so I had to start making that space and making that time. And a lot of that was saying no to these sort of things on my list that I really didn't want to do. I talk a lot about this in my Goddess Guides. I felt like I wasn't living, I didn't have control of my own life. I was doing all these things that were expected, and all these people were sort of looking to me to do them. And I just kind of like held my hand up and said, okay, sure, I'm going to keep doing this. And when I put my hand down, it was a little scary, I'll tell you, and some people really didn't like that I wasn't going to be doing the things that I had kind of been doing all along for them, because you know what, they were really benefiting. But at the same time, you have to kind of start with yourself. And so this is one of those seasons where people start to get really stressed out, especially women, because it seems like there's so much that feels like on their shoulders. There's parties, there's gift giving, there's present wrapping. Present wrapping is one of my least favorite things because I used to have to do it for like so many of my other siblings when I was growing up. And so I finally just decided I didn't want to wrap presents. I was just going to buy gift bags on discount after the holidays, and I was just going to stick stuff in a gift bag, and I was so content to do that. Little things like that, that will go and like help sort of stave off some of that, some of those anxieties. And now about the depression, the blues, the sort of tough feelings. Let's just take a moment to sort of quiet ourselves, tune in, take a deep breath. And I'm just going to ask, like, straight up and straightforward, why don't you feel loved right now? What is it about this time of year that makes you not feel loved or appreciated or supported or cared for? Those answers are going to come probably pretty easily. For some of you, it might take a little bit of time. Might be like sort of walking into a no man's land because you really haven't asked yourself that before. Maybe this was a time of year that there was a lot of stress around your house when you were growing up, and it just isn't a happy time. Or maybe it's a time where you just sort of look and you're like, yet again, you're not married, you don't have kids, you don't have the man in the jewelry commercial giving you something special and appreciating you, and maybe it's just like another year that goes by where your dreams aren't met. Whatever those things are, that's something that we can go and just bless. Take a breath. We're just going to infuse some more heart and love energy into you. I know this seems like it might be really simple, but you'd be surprised if you like start to do it a lot. It really starts to help things, because giving ourselves that attention, asking ourselves what we need, we really are in the end the only person that can give ourselves what we truly need. And once we realize that, once we commit to that, what I will call very simply, once you become your own best friend. You might have a best friend who's wonderful, and I know I do now, but for a lot of years I sort of like had some friends who I was really close to and I loved, but I always was the one that I felt like was giving always to them. And once I kind of said, you know, I really want these relationships to look different. I want them to be equal. I want to be treated with love and respect and kindness and support. I went ahead and changed all that up. So that might be something that you might want to do this holiday season, is just decide what is the best friend to you? What does that look like? And to make that list and to start being that to yourself. That's going to really help. I hope this video was helpful. And like I said, it's just a tip of the iceberg, but it's something that I felt really called to do to help those of you who are really struggling on the holidays. And if you're looking for more resources, please do check out my Goddess Guides, because they are a lot more complete than one video can be. And there's 9 books that you can choose from on happiness and releasing toxic relationships to going and bringing in more money and abundance into your life. All sorts of things that you can do to transform your life. And like I said, I wish you a beautiful, happy holiday. And I hope that you continue to see the gift that you are and that you are valued and treasured.